I think we've all experienced these two scenarios. The first, you have a conversation with a client, whether it be a strategy call or an email thread or a sales call, and afterwards you are buzzing. You are so excited, just filled with energy, and you can't wait to work with them because you know that you can help that person in the exact way they need. I live for those conversations. They fill my soul, my energy. I love them, and I'm sure you do too. And then there's the second scenario. You get off that call or that webinar or that meeting and you feel drained, disappointed, deflated. It's the opposite of that, this is what I'm meant to be doing kind of feeling. So what makes scenario 1 and 2 different? Because you're the same person going into those two scenarios, you have the same knowledge and same services to offer them. Why is it that you end the call with such different emotions and energy levels? Here's why. One is your ideal client, and the other, it's someone you might be working with, but they don't fall into your specific ideal niche. They don't need the specific solutions that you are offering. Maybe they're just beginning their journey, or maybe they're light years beyond. No matter the level, in order to get that, yes, I'm so energized from that conversation feeling, you need to be attracting and working with the right clients. It's one of the biggest issues women business owners run into. So let's talk about if you are chasing the wrong clients right now and how to get aligned and attracting the right ones for you. Hi and welcome to this episode of the Her Business Podcast. I'm Susie Daphnis, I'm your host, and I am so excited about this conversation. Not all clients are created equal, and chasing the wrong ones can cost you more than just money. And in this episode, I'm joined by marketing expert Michelle Falzon to explore the hidden cost of working with misaligned clients, the energy drain, the scope creep, and missed opportunities for real growth. In this conversation, we break down the subtle but powerful shifts in messaging, positioning, and packaging that can stop the cycle and help you to start attracting clients who are truly valuing what you do. So if you've ever felt like you're working too hard for too little reward, this conversation will show you how to realign and start calling in the right people with a lot more ease. Plus, we're going to introduce you to a brand new free webinar, Ideal Clients on Demand, where we go deeper into how to attract your dream clients without complicated marketing or cutting your prices. Now, if you don't know the incredible Michelle Falzon, she is my co-host over on the other Her Business podcast called Content Sells, and she's an expert in all things messaging, marketing, and positioning. She has worked with and continues to work with some major, and I mean major names in online marketing, and she offers exclusively high-level consulting to business owners who want to hone in on their messaging to attract the right clients. Not only is she a marketing genius, she also co-presents the Her Business Marketing Success Mastermind program with me. And she's a great friend of mine and someone I have collaborated with professionally for years. I cannot wait to have her back here in the seat with me on the Her Business podcast. You are in for such a treat. Ready? Let's welcome Michelle. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hey, Susie. Gee, it's so good to be here.
I know that we do our Content Sells podcast every other week, but it's been a few years since you've been on the Her Business podcast. While we're recording the videos of this as well, it's been years since you've been on the Her Business podcast, our other show. And it's definitely about time.
I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, oh, wow, I'd have to go back and look, but it really has been years and it is different. Like, I love being on your show. This is nice.
This is so good. Now, we co-present the Content Sells podcast, our show. We co-present the mastermind courses, all sorts of things for well over a decade now, and we can often finish each other's sentences. But I wanted to dive into your beautiful mind from an interviewer perspective today and ask you about some of the insights on this topic of are we chasing the wrong clients, not only from the work that we do together in the mastermind and across Her Business, but also with the wonderful clients that you're working with every day. And so I thought that bringing that into the show would be just so rich. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, me too. Excited to be here. And, I often say this, but I just need to say it again. You are such a great interviewer, and I am just looking forward to being interviewed by you.
Oh, thank you. No pressure at all.
No pressure. We're going to have some fun.
Very good. Okay. So you've worked with so many business owners on their messaging. And so I'm sure you've seen all the mistakes that people are making with their messaging that has them attract the totally wrong client, the clients that aren't willing to pay the prices, they're not the right profile, they're not going to stick. Yeah. What are these mistakes and why do you think they're so common?
Gee, it's such a good question, and it is such a I feel like I could go in about 20 different directions around this. It's like such a foundational idea, and I'm so glad we're talking about this because when we do work with the wrong people, we attract the wrong clients, or the people that aren't the people we're really here to serve, it just ripples through our entire business. Our profitability can be affected. Our ability to fully shine in our business and do the work we most want to do, the results that we can get for people, the sustainability, we can sort of burn ourselves out over delivering to the wrong client, and all, it just affects everything. It is such the DNA of our business. So it's really a central idea I'm so glad we're going to dig into. And yeah, I do see this is a universal issue. So if somebody's listening right now and thinking, oh, I might be guilty of this, you are definitely not alone because I work with really big, organizations, people that have global audiences, names you would know. And I also work with smaller business owners inside the mastermind, like you were saying, Susie, and inside the courses that we run together. And also when I guest present maybe for a client into their community. So I've kind of got this I'm so pleased to have this sort of bird's eye view, this back doorway into literally thousands and thousands of business owners. And this mistake is just prevalent everywhere. And so I think there's a few kind of key mistakes, key dynamics going on. The first one is, and this is maybe the most obvious one and other people have maybe spoken about a lot, is we just want to have all the peoples. Like we just want to get all the marbles. We don't want to, surely if I throw my net as wide as humanly possible, I'm going to have a better result than if I narrow my net to just get, a particular type of fish. And that is not actually true. I know you've found that and, in the work that we've done and the work that you do and that you've done for decades. I find that when I work with clients as well, if we can kind of get out of that mindset of throwing the net as wide as we possibly can, anybody with a pulse, and start to really become specific about who we most want to talk to, that's actually when our messaging becomes clearer, more evocative, more magnetic. It's when somebody goes, oh, she or he or they are for me. And it's what interrupts the trance that most people are in. All of us are in our daily trance. We're all walking around thinking about what we're going to make for dinner or worried about our kids or thinking about how we're going to handle this client problem or when is the car repayment due or whatever the thing is that's going on in our mind. And it really takes something pretty relevant to us, pretty extraordinary in a way, to break into that trance. And generic, let me try and speak to everyone sort of content doesn't permeate. We've got to be saying really specific things that speak to that person's pain, to their yearnings, to their desires, to even have them begin to pay attention to us, let alone, give us their precious time to watch our video or sign up for our lead magnet or come to our webinar or book a call with us or any of those other things that we want them to do. So I think that's the really big one. Trying to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to no one. That's a sort of a bit of a chestnut in this industry. But I also think for women, and, this podcast is, a lot of women listening to this show, women business owners, we want to help everyone. Like it's in our nature. And we can even feel what I notice is this sort of subterranean sense of meanness or selfishness if we think, oh, I'm just for this person. I'm not for that person. And
you're leaving them behind.
Yes.
You're leaving the little people behind or whomever it is, right?
Right. Or how dare I is another thing. How dare I think I can work for just these kinds of people and not those kinds of people? And so we have this very nurturing, kind of attitude, I think, to our client base and to the people we want to serve. But here's the thing, when we try and be everything to everyone, we end up being nothing to no one, and we really can't help anybody in a real meaningful way. And we're running the clock down on our business as well and on our own energy levels. And a mutual friend of both yours and mine, Claire Zammit, has this great distinction. She says, don't get your business and your ministry confused. And so if you want to help, people, like let's say you're a business coach and you really know that the best work you can do is with a business owner who is already, doing well and they want to do better. But then you're like, well, what about the people that are struggling right now? The people that are really having a hard time in their business, they might even struggle to pay you, right? So they're not really an ideal client to go chasing after as your business model. But if you have a really healthy, thriving business and you're working with those clients you most want to work with who love you and want to pay you, then guess what happens? You could potentially organize your business so that you can take on a couple of pro bono clients. That is the distinction between the ministry work or the pro bono work or the passion, caring, nurturing work, the giving back work, and the actual work that keeps all the lights on and the, wheels turning in your business and achieving the financial goals that you want to achieve. And I think when we get these things, they're like pieces on a chessboard. If we get them in the wrong place, it's hard to play the game. But when we know where all the pieces go, we go, okay, well, what if I really did focus on who I most want to serve, who's the best kind of client for my business model, who's the one that's most likely to pay, the most likely to buy my next most expensive thing and buy, work with me over time and all of those things. If we can be strategic like that, then we create a thriving business where we can do all kinds of other things. And some of that can be to help those other people that we maybe don't particularly want to go after commercially.
I love what you're saying there. And we've been through this process ourselves, and you've been very much part of witness to all of that. And I know the feeling of I want to help everybody, but not everybody is my ideal client. And I mean, that's why we have free podcasts and we do stuff on social media and we have free reports and downloads and things so that everybody can be part of that ministry that we have to help women have freedom in their businesses. But, lights still have to be, the electricity bills still need to be paid, the staff need to be paid. We still need to have a commercial angle to what we're doing. But we can have both. But having that distinction that Claire makes is a really, really good one. And I love the language that she's used there. And thank you for explaining that. And as I said, you've been witness to us realizing that we were working with misaligned clients. And by misaligned, I mean they weren't aligned to where the business is going, the sort of clients that I wanted to work with, the people that I wanted to most serve. So see, I just said that and I felt a little selfish saying the people I want to work with, as though I get to choose. So that little bit of guilt feeling that I noticed as I said that. But it is like the people I can help most. And I know for me, the people I can help most are women who they are running a business. They don't have one foot out the door. They're not straddling, well, maybe I'll go get a job. They're like, I'm in my business. I'm growing my business. I'm having some success. I'm kind of stuck. I don't want to do this on my own anymore. I feel isolated. I know I need to upskill myself in how to actually run a business and be a CEO and that mindset side of that and the practical side of that. And so and this is more for the listeners than you, Michelle, because you were part of this process. We 18 months ago now said, okay, we are drawing a line in the sand. This is the type of business women who are for. Now, if you're already in our community, great, you get to stay. But just know that the type of woman we are speaking to is the woman that I just described. And then we had to think about, well, what does our messaging need to be in order for us to not bring in the wrong clients in the future? And that has been quite a task to turn the ship around, saying, okay, one, we're going to change our price point so that we appeal to someone who's more willing to invest in themselves and their business and isn't looking for a freebie or very low-cost thing. And we have to change our messaging. And we're still finding our way, to be honest. We get better and better at it every month. But I'd love for you to share a time where you or a client realized that they were working with the wrong clients, chasing the wrong clients, and what sort of change did they see when they made the shift and said, no, this is my ideal client, this is the one I'm going to go after?
Yeah, another great question. And I'm thinking of a client right now who has a very large business and has had a business that's been very successful for, over a decade, very well known in her field, and had really had a history, I think, in more of a personal development focus. And kind of realized a few years ago, I want to change my business. Had a similar feeling to you, like, hang on, I actually see that the real magic of what I deliver, the real place where I can be most useful in the world and where I can do the work that helps me to really, my spirit to sing, is a little different. It's actually more so for people in, who want to help others in their growth. And so instead of just being for everybody who wants to develop themselves personally, she really focused in on people who work, in a coaching or a practitioner kind of capacity to help others. And that was a kind of strategic shift, and thus began the journey. And you sort of said you're still figuring it out, right? And it can take some time to figure this out. And so they began thinking, well, we're for all coaches and practitioners and anybody that wants to sort of help other people to succeed, and in that way, it's really people working inside organizations, even, intrapreneurs and things like that. And then she got a little bit clearer that actually, no, I'm specifically for coaches and practitioners. Like, I'm not for the woman out there that's kind of working in a big corporate organization and things like that. Now, we can think that is us getting clearer and clearer about our ideal client, and it is, but that's still incredibly broad. And what that does is kind of what we're touching on before. The broader we are, the harder it is to create messaging that really lands. And you end up speaking in these motherhood type statements, even though you've got all this brilliance to share with the world. And I don't know if you've experienced this, Susie, or if our listeners have experienced this, but I know when I'm not being specific enough about my client, when I feel like I'm just sort of going blah, 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 blah. I'm just talking about things anybody could say about this topic versus the specific magic that I've got to say about this topic and the deeper nuances that I've got to bring that really add value. And I think that's a sign that you're too broad. And that's what was happening for her. And have you had that experience? Have you kind of felt that with your content?
I have, because again, from wanting to help everyone, some of the broad content, I go, well, people need to know this broader content. How do I plan? How do I hire someone? How do I put together systems? How do I, create an ideal client profile? All those things. And it's still too broad. But if I can speak to the woman who's growing a business, who one of her biggest pain points might be that she's just working herself to the bone, or that she's got this revolving door of staff, or things are falling to the ground every time she leaves the office for 2 days, everything sort of falls apart. Like, just getting more specific about who is she? What is her DNA? What keeps her up at night? And actually narrowing it further. I think it's an endless thing to go narrower and narrower and narrower. Yeah. And so it's a little easier to stay broad. I think it's a challenge to be really committed to just being for one person. And, one of my favorite marketers, Seth Godin, in his book, This Is Marketing, said, you want to be able to say, I made this, whatever you sell, for you, but not for you. And to have it be really clear to people like, oh, she's definitely not for me, or she definitely is for me, because she's saying the words that I say in my head. Like, there's such an empathy there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think narrow is narrow, but we think we've gone narrow, like you said, and then there might be another layer of that.
Right. And I think that the trap, as you said, it's kind of a little easier to stay broad and it's a little scary to go narrower. But just listening to you talking then, I can see how that you got more granular, how that would create evocative social posts and, email copy, and that the kind of products that you would make would be so much more specific. And that's what my client was finding, right? So she had, this focus on coaches and practitioners, but really we had so much more, like you said, you can narrow in and narrow in and narrow in even more. And what we realized was there's actually 4 types of coaches that were in that big group under the heading coach, right? And so we then dug into, well, who are these 4 sort of subsets of this big group called coach? Because that's not enough. If you're thinking, well, I look after all women in business right now, that's not enough.
Right.
Or, I look after everybody that's, parenting a young child right now. That's not enough, right? So how do you get, how do you zero in a bit more? And that was really the job of my client. And that's when she reached out to me, because this is a hard job to sometimes do on our own. We do need sometimes people that are outside the bottle and that can read the label. And so I love all the creative side of marketing, but I also love the strategic, tactical, give me the data side of marketing. And so we started to do some segmentation, some surveys. We started to really look at who is in our world. And we identified 4 types of coaches. And what was really interesting when we named these 4 types of coaches, and actually we're doing some work right now with some of our masterminders, Susie. I'm thinking particularly of the gorgeous Mandy Brasser, who's in the mastermind, who's doing this activity right now. I was just helping her with something in the group last night about this, that when we can name those segments, a whole lot of things become clearer. It's like, like let's say you've got beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, because I need to keep my clients' details confidential, but let's just say they were the groups. Then what you can realize is, oh my gosh, I'm tailoring all of my content for beginners.
Right.
And I'm alienating all of these advanced people who are actually the ones that I most want to work with, that have got the most money, that could buy my next most expensive thing, that, will refer all their friends. And what happens is, if you, like you said, you realize, they've got to understand all the basics. So I'm on this webinar, I better explain all the basics. And then you don't get to the more advanced stuff. All those advanced people that gave you a chance go, oh, she's just for beginners, she's not for me. Yeah. And they're out of there. And that's what my client was doing. She's really alienating the people she most wanted. So we named the segments. We started getting people to tell us which segment what they were in when they opted in, which was a really helpful thing to do. And then we were able to track them all the way through the sales process and the funnel and the upsells and all those things, and identify our most profitable segment. And so now what we do is we create our lead magnets, our ads, our copy, our pitches, the bonuses we're thinking about in our offers. Every single thing we create for her. We create for the segment we most want to support. Now, do we still get, in this example, that I was sharing before, say it was advanced, intermediate and beginner. Do we still get intermediates and beginners? Yes, but they kind of come along in the draft. They kind of they're aspirationally kind of drawn to this message of being an experienced, advanced coach, or whatever might be the traits of the person you're targeting. So if you think about it like a boat, when a boat goes through the water, the bow of the boat's what cuts through. It's what is at the front of the boat that's really moving through the water. And then other, dolphins and things, they come along and ride in the wash of that. So if you think about your clients that way, think about who's at the bow of the boat, who's that most right fit client, and then how do I make my content for them, and just trust that some of these other tangential adjacent groups will kind of come along in the wash.
I love that metaphor. One that I use as well is, if you can imagine a dartboard, you can hit anywhere on the board and it's a point. Yeah, you. But who's in the bullseye? Like, what is that bullseye, that top, And so that's just another way to think about that.
I love
because
that.
we can have all the clients, and the darts can end up anywhere. It doesn't matter. 1 point here, 1 point there, whatever. When you're going to go for the bullseye, the big points, who are those people? We've kind of already talked about this, but maybe we want to go a little deeper, Michelle, and that is, I want people to stop not worrying, even though I still worry a little bit, about repelling people, but really standing for who they stand for. So how do we think about how to narrow down who we serve?
This is like one of my favorite questions of all time. I love it because it is. Thank you. She's such a good interviewer, folks. No, I love this question because somebody that you and I have interviewed for the Content Sales podcast and that has spoken to our mastermind is the most wonderful Nicole Burke of Gardenary. She's grown a massive, 1.3 million followers on Instagram, and incredible business off the back of that. And she said this phrase when she was talking to us on the podcast, I think it was, about practicing in public. And she had to kind of get over the idea that everything has to be perfect before I serve it up to the world. And I think this concept is such an important one to bring to getting clear on our ideal client. This getting clear on your ideal client is like the laundry, like doing the washing. It's a job that never ends. You know what I mean? You just get better at it. And so you're practicing in public all the time. Like, you said before, Susie, we're still figuring some things out. And the client that I mentioned, like we had to find our way into that niche, because the first niche we thought it was all the beginners. We thought, well, there's more beginners. Why don't we try just really getting people when they first enter this industry and train them up and move them right from the beginning? But they were not our people. They responded to the free lead magnet and all the free stuff, but then they weren't buying at the level that the more experienced people were buying. But we'd alienated a lot of the experienced people by pitching to the beginners. And so it wasn't until we shifted that around and we just went right from the start of the marketing funnel, right from the start of the early communications, speaking to that more advanced person, that things kind of came into alignment. And really this client had a journey for many years before that. I'm for everyone in personal development. No, I'm for coaches and practitioners and people that work with others to develop them. No, I'm just for coaches and practitioners. Actually, I'm really more so just for coaches. Actually, I'm really just for the experienced coach, And so we find our way into it, and we cannot find our way into it if we are not prepared to practice in public, if we're not prepared to try some stuff, and I'm not talking about just throwing anything at the wall, but, okay, let's experiment. Let's put out some content that is specifically speaking to this group and just see what happens. Oh, that really kind of worked, but they didn't understand what we meant about that. Or, we need to, if we're going to go after that person now, the next thing we offer can't be a webinar anymore. It needs to be a personal consult or whatever it is, right? We start to change and move the pieces around on the chessboard. So I would say really committing to this as an ongoing practice. People sort of talk about mastery. If you're going to master anything, if you're into the martial arts, you begin as the beginner and you practice those moves, but you keep showing up, you keep doing the work. And if you can hold this idea, I need to get better at who is my ideal client and how do I serve them and how do I communicate with them? If that's your guiding light, if starting right where we began today's show was like, this is foundation, the ripple effect of this through your business is so huge. So if we commit, I think is really important, and that we trust that we're going to find our way into it and that it's a progressive narrowing and that we're going to experiment and we're going to put our hat on and read the data and make changes, and some things will work and some things won't work, and that's very, very normal. Even the people right out there right now that you're looking at in your market that you think, oh my gosh, they've got it all figured out, I promise you, they found their way into it. They fell on their face, they made mistakes, they had to go back and reinvent things, but they committed. And they practiced in public and they were imperfect and they read the data and they made changes and they just stayed directionally accurate. And we've got so many great examples of that inside the mastermind of women who've just got progressively more narrow. Like I'm thinking about the most gorgeous Angela Council, she's in the Her Business Network.
That's who came to mind for me as well. Yes, because she's doing a great job of what you're just about to say.
Yeah, I mean, she found her way into it, didn't she? She started off when she first was working with us, helping all women who have menopause symptoms. In fact, really, I think if I wound the clock back even before we met Angela, she was a naturopath, kind of helping all people, And then it's like, well, I like helping women. Well, actually, I really like helping women deal with menopause issues. And as she reached, a certain age in her life where that started to be an important thing to figure out, she had real magical, important, valuable things to share. And so she became more valuable. She focused in on women with menopause. And then actually, she was really brave and she said, well, my philosophy is actually, and regardless of how you feel about this philosophy, her philosophy is, I think you can get through menopause naturally and by doing a whole bunch of behaviors that you don't need HRT for. So then she started going out and saying, I'm actually for women who want to get through menopause without HRT. She drew a line in the sand. She stood for something. Now, if you don't want to do HRT and you're going through menopause, do you want to hear what that woman has got to say? Yes, you do.
Absolutely. And now she's going even another level deeper. Yeah. Which, I'll let her talk about. But she's just taking this idea of being radically niched, like just going, because her space has gotten really busy, and perhaps you're in a space where everyone just sounds like everyone else, and everyone's just trying to, do one extra bonus than the other person, or price it just slightly cheaper or just slightly more, or add one more inclusion. And she's just saying, no, I'm just going to go more narrow. It's not just going to be women in menopause. It's going to be women in menopause who don't want to do HRT. And now she's going another level. And that well is very deep, because she becomes the person who's saying, I made this for you, but not for you, to speak back to Seth's advice. So, yeah, Angela, we love you. We'll put a link to Angela's work in the show notes in case you're a woman wanting to know more about that. Now, one of the things that we're doing inside of her business this year, Michelle, as you know, is we have named it the Year of the Offer. And so throughout the year, we are offering all sorts of resources and support for women to help them craft offers that actually convert their prospects into clients, that actually sell their products and services. And something that we've been doing both inside of our mastermind, Michelle, and at the new program that we ran earlier this year, the Advanced Offer Creation program, is we started to talk about the subtle shifts that people could make in the way that they position their offers, the way they present their offers, that can actually make a big difference to the quality of client and the type of client that is attracted to that offer. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to. There are so many things that go into making a great offer, and that's a whole other kind of conversation.
Yeah.
But, what we talked about at the Advanced Offer Creation 2-day event, what we talk about a lot on the podcast, what I know you're just doing such great work with Her Business community this year, talking about with the Year of the Offer, is, all these different things that make up an offer. And, an offer is really something you deliberately create, and it's quite a different thing to the product you sell. We're so invested in the product we sell, whether it's a service or a physical product. We've maybe done a degree in it, or we've spent years building it or researching it, or we're diligent about the follow-up service or the widgets that are included, or importing special metal from, where do they make great metal? I don't know, here in Australia. You know what I mean? Like
here in Australia,
going to Spain and importing something really bespoke. And so we're very, very focused on all the things that are the sort of features of our product. But that isn't actually the thing we need to explain to people in order to help them to buy from us. What we need to do is to package that product or service into an offer. And that's how we communicate and package and position this wonderful thing that you have to sell. And there are really many parts to an offer, but we sort of distilled it down to a few key things. Things like how you price it, how you name it, how you brand it, the kind of risk reversal you might be doing, how you're helping people to feel like I can buy this and not be worried that it's going to, blow up in my face in some way, That can be a money-back guarantee or a warranty or any of those kinds of things. And then also, how do we talk about what's included, not from a feature point of view, but from a benefit point of view? What bonuses might we include that incentivize people to take action right now, or other things we can do to add some scarcity? So that's the sort of field that we're playing in when we talk about offer. And I think one of the most important things is how we price it, to get back to your question, Susie, how do we price what we're selling? And I think, again, if I can speak, generally, but broadly, I know this to be true, having worked with thousands of women business owners just outright, most of the time, undercharge and overdeliver. Yeah. And so a lot of the time, we're lowballing our price, thinking that's going to give us a better chance of getting these people to buy from us. But oftentimes, people are looking at our price going, well, why is that so cheap? Or they buy from us because they're the bargain hunters, and then they suck the living life out of us, and we get all caught up in this over delivery, and we don't have time to work with other clients. So undercharging is a race to the bottom. What you want to be doing instead is thinking about positioning. Do I have like a budget service, and I can see by my business model that this is really profitable if I can get a lot of people to buy this budget thing, and I'm going to go out and stand for that? am I sort of meeting the market? Am I about what other people charge and I'm going to really stand out by my messaging? Or am I a premium or deluxe service that I'm going to charge a higher price for? And so thinking about that comes back to what you started the whole episode with, Susie, which is how do we get clearer and clearer about who we're for? I made this for you and not for you. And so if we're making it for the more experienced person, the woman that's maybe looking for a little bit more status, a little bit more deeper quality, is prepared to pay for more hands-on service, then we want to build the offer, what we include in our service, how we price that to match her. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but I think pricing
it does. But I could go in so many directions too, because one thing I want to pick up right there before it escapes my brain is that the mastermind that we do, we've positioned it for the woman who is doubling down on her business. You know, she's got an established business. She's already generating 6 figures, but she's, you know, the sky's the limit for her. And she knows that marketing is the place where she needs to put her attention right now if she wants to generate more revenue and more profit. And so the offer that we've created, the way we've positioned it, from the what's included to the bonuses to the guarantee to the price point, is very much for that particular woman. And it's a premium product. And they get to work very closely with the two of us for a whole year on their marketing and get incredible transformation. But if we were offering that at a, you know, bottom basement price, one, people wouldn't get the results. There wouldn't be the commitment. There wouldn't, well, we couldn't sustain it is the other thing.
Right.
But it's a premium product. Just like with her business, when we decided, okay, our ideal client is a woman with who's knocking on the door of $100,000, or she's past that and she's really looking to create a sustainable business, one that sustains her, but also that is sustainable as a business. And we actually doubled the price of our membership. We were so underpriced, Michelle, that if I was a serious business owner, the sort of business owner that I'm trying to attract, I would have looked at it and thought, can't be that valuable for that price point. So we were really doing ourselves a disservice by being priced too low. It's still a no-brainer price for anyone who wants to invest in their business, but it's going to attract, because remember, this is about chasing the wrong clients. That price point now doesn't speak to the wrong clients. It speaks to someone who's like, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of skin in the game, but it's very manageable for what I'm getting. I get it's a premium. Susie's not trying to be like everyone else. She's offering something that's more exclusive. And then we build that offer as to what we offer based on who that ideal client is. Now, let me explain. When, in my experience, women are just starting out in business, they often have very little money and a lot of time. So anything that's free or low cost is really attractive and I think really important to be provided. That's why we provide a lot of resources. But the moment her business starts to take off and she's got more money, often what goes away? Time, usually, right? Until she can find herself in the... So we built our offer and crafted what's included in her business for the busy woman, the woman who can't show up to a networking event every week or go out for lunches or be at breakfast, or she doesn't have all the time. But what does she have time for? She has time to do 4 boardroom-style strategy meetings a year. She has time to meet with an accountability group of women of like mind and like-sized business, to be held accountable, to move towards her goals. And so I say all this because this is how we can craft our offers to be aligned with the types of clients that we want to have. And that's one of the ways that we did it.
I love that you're speaking to the flow on impact, right? If we are attracting the wrong clients, kind of what we've been saying all the way along, but I really want to just reiterate, we're sort of putting ourselves behind the 8 ball before we start. Like, I loved hearing you then, Susie, kind of demonstrate all the things that become clearer that you want to think about and change. Like, you're so clear now on who she is. She doesn't have time for all these things, but she's got time for this and this and this. So you're building and shaping the product to be the thing she really wants. And, you know, what happens is you get the right woman and then she goes, oh my gosh, this is really built for me. And I'm getting so much value out of this. I never want to leave. So your retention goes up and your recurring, you know, revenue in your business goes up and the business becomes more sustainable, but also you get jazzed up. You get to share more of your brilliance, and then the other women get to meet other brilliant women. And the whole thing becomes this upward virtuous sort of amazing spiral. And that's what we want, for everybody listening. That's what we want for your business. If you're attracting the wrong clients, if you've got this scarcity mindset, I've got to just lowball my prices and just take any lead that comes my way and throw the net as wide as I can. What's happening there is you're kind of getting into this downward spiral where you attract the freebie seekers, or you attract the people that are going to take so much more time, or scope creep in your project. If you help them with websites or something that has scope, is going to, I just know what it's like. When I made the decision in my business that the consulting work that I do, I will only work with a very, very, very specific type of client. And there aren't that many of them on the planet. Like there's hundreds of thousands of people in this space that I work in, but there might only be, I don't know, maybe there's only a couple of thousand of the people at the level that I work with. But it's all referral. I don't have to, I only need a few clients. I charge a lot. But they're also the people that never quibble over an invoice, that always pay on time, that love and appreciate the work I do, that challenge me and get me digging into all my life experience and keep me jazzed up. And so that's the upward spiral at play versus the downward spiral, just kind of grabbing what we can get and being monotone and being like everyone else and just keeping to these broad statements and not really cutting through.
Recently, Michelle, you and I recorded a podcast. We re-recorded a podcast that we did many years ago, which was all about how to craft offers that sell. And a companion to the audio of the podcast was a free resource we created called, I can't remember, it's something about ultimate high converting offers. I wish I should I forget the name now, but it walks you through the 7 elements of a high converting offer, what we were exactly talking about on how to craft an offer that's going to repel the people that are not your ideal client and draw the people who are your client. And I'll get the name in just a second, but I mention it now while I remember, because I'm going to put a link to it in the resources, both to the episode so that you can have a listen to it. And that episode is part of the Content Sales podcast, and also to the resource so that you could go ahead and start to craft an offer that has you not chasing the wrong clients, but really getting in the ones that are aligned to what type of client you want to be working with. And I'm going to go look that up. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you a question, Michelle. What are the signs that someone is finally ready to stop chasing the wrong clients and attract better ones? Are there clues that you've seen?
There are many clues, and I think we've been sort of alluding to them as we kind of go through today's show. But just to sort of pluck them out, there's a general sense that you are speaking in a really broad way to your audience that is, it almost feels like an invisible wall. It's like, when do I get to share the good stuff? How do I get more specific with my audience? Maybe your messaging is just bouncing off. You're not getting people liking your social posts or opting in for your lead magnet or clicking on your ads or, joining your email list or opening your emails. Like, these are all signs that whatever you're doing right now is not working. But I think we know in our guts that we're going too broad, and we can almost, if we really just let our intuition kind of just tune into that for a sec, we can see where we're afraid. Like, we can see where we've been playing kind of a game of like, I'm afraid to narrow down. And, we talked about Angela before. That was a courageous move. I'm not trying to minimize fear. It's real. And she copped some flack about that. You put that sort of stuff out on social media, you're going to get the haters. You're going to get the people that, this is not for you, but they're going to let you know this is not for them, right?
Yeah, and why you're wrong.
Right. But if you've got this emerging feeling, this yearning to show more of yourself, to do deeper work, if you're seeing that what you're doing right now is not landing, if you're overwhelmed, like you're over delivering and you're undercharging, if you don't have any clients, right? You've got a lot of clients, but you're still not making any money and you're running around like crazy, that's one indicator. Or you just don't have enough clients. Try going narrower. And I think, we've all got a vision for our business. We've all got a vision, that there's ideas that dance around our heads when we just let ourselves see the possibilities. And you can have that. But it means letting go of just trying to be everything to everybody. And it means taking a few gulps, putting on our big girl pants and saying, I just like you said, you quoted Seth Godin before, I made this for you. Like, who is that you? And really like standing in that, having a vision for that, aligning your vision with who is in the room or who is on the phone or who is, buying from you, who's signing that proposal, who is that person? I think if that vision is really not aligned with the reality you're in right now, that's a really good sign that it's time to get a little narrow. And if I can just tell a really quick story, because we have a mutual friend who did this, and his name is Clint Salter, another great person we've had on the Content Sales podcast.
Yeah. I saw him last night, matter of fact.
Oh, how serendipitous. Well, we love Clint, and what he did was so courageous, but also in the end turned out to be such a smart move and just so generative in that upward spiral we were talking about before, because he was a business coach. He was helping anyone with a pulse who had a business. Right. And he happened to have a couple of people on his roster who ran dance studios. And that's because he'd had his own dance studio and he knew that space, and he maybe had some friends or referrals or something. So in the mix here was a couple of dance studio owners. He'd been a dancer as a youngster. He'd run a dance studio. So he had all this great magic, unique magic to give to those particular clients. And all the other business owners, he could, help them too. But there's millions of business owners in the world. So you would think, wouldn't he have a better chance of growing a business as a business coach that can work with any kind of business? But what he did when that gap opened up for him was he realized, I like working with these people and they get me and I get them and I'm jazzed up when I work with them and they see the value and they stay in my program longer. Guess what? I think I'm just going to be a coach for dance studio owners. Now, I think there's like 60,000 dance studios in the entire world, and yet he became for them. I made this for you. And guess what happened? He became the big fish in a little pond. He became the go-to business expert for anyone that had a dance studio. And he grew this incredible business, which he since exited from. And it was the upward spiral in the most beautiful way. Profitability, sustainability, impact, joy for him, but also for the people that he helped, the people that he served. And he brought his magic to the world. And he helped those people bring their magic to the world. And that's kind of what we're here for, right? I think.
I love that. I'm so glad you shared that story, because you're right. He just became the person. If you're a dance studio owner, you had to be part of his membership, his mastermind, his courses, get his resources. So clever. And that might apply to you. Maybe you are really broad and yet your heart, your expertise, your background is in a niche that could be so lucrative for you. Now, Michelle, I found the name of the resource that we created. It's called the Ultimate High Converting Offer Blueprint for Women Business Owners. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes, and I'm going to give you the details for the show notes in just a few minutes. And I know that if you're listening right now and you're lapping this all up, but feeling frustrated that you are not getting the right clients, you might be closer than you think. And there might just be some invisible factors that are blocking you, a smart, capable woman like you, from actually attracting the right clients. And so there's a few things that you can do to further the conversation we started today to have you create this steady flow of customers that is there on tap for you. And that helps you grow your business with more ease, with more alignment, with more momentum. And so Michelle and I have come up with a plan, as we like to do, and we are running a free workshop called Ideal Clients on Demand. And that is coming up real soon, and you are invited. And I will put a link to that in the show notes. But first, I want to invite you and Michelle, talk a little about why we're doing this, what people can expect.
Yeah, well, first off, we're always listening. I think, and I was going to say I don't want to brag, but no, I'm going to brag. I'm just going to say what's true. You and I have our ears to the ground for women in business, and I think we have a really unique perspective, doing all the work we do with all the women business owners that we work with, to see where these really important stuck points are, where these things are that are holding women back, and we just know in our bones that this is one of the big issues. And so we've just decided, how do we help? How do we give? How do we create a platform for this to be more of a discussion around getting clear on who your ideal client is, and how do you get those people, on, like you said, on tap, on demand? How do we not only get clear on who this person is, but then have them as many of them as we want, whenever we want, coming
Right.
into our world and growing a business, and also giving back to those people in a way that is that upward spiral that we were talking about. So yeah, you and I are creators. We've co-created so many things together. It's been such a incredibly fruitful creative partnership. And so when we see a problem like this, we go into creator mode. And so that's where this free training has come from. We just want to kind of get out there and help and make sure that you get these foundation pieces in place, because like you said, Susie, a lot of women are much closer than they think. Like you might be listening today going, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw my hands up in the air. I can't do this, right? But actually there's just a few things. There's a few mistakes. There's a few strategies. There's a few things that if you can see what they are amongst all the noise of all the things that are screaming at us in our business right now, then it is doable. And it doesn't have to be exhausting. And actually it starts to make life less exhausting when you can figure this out.
So good. So that's coming up real soon. I'm going to put the details and the link in the show notes. And as I said, I'll tell you where the show notes are in just a couple of minutes. Michelle, I have loved this conversation, as I love all our conversations, but it's just kind of a little different take. And I wanted to know, is there anything that you want to say as we wrap up this part of this episode?
Well, I want to say thank you, Susie, for all the work you have done, for decades to support women and to be that voice for them and to create resources like this podcast and the training we're going to do. It is such a massive contribution that you have made to women in business. And I am just so honored to be here with you today on this gorgeous show that you run. One of the first podcasts, I think, ever in Australia for, the world, as the innovator that you are. So I just want to acknowledge you and thank you. And I want to say to anybody that's stirred up by what we've talked about today, go and check out the resources that we've mentioned. Come to the live training with us. Like start the ball rolling. Get closer to that vision of what you started your business for, and all the visions that dance in your head, you can have them. You really, really can. And it's believing that and having the intention of that, and also saying no to some things. Like, no, I'm not going to work with you. I work with these types of people. And just moving yourself constantly in that direction, that's how all of us get there. And I wish you all the very best with that, finding your way into who your ideal client is.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Love you.
Love you. Thank you, Susie.
Hey, I can't emphasize enough how much I loved this conversation with Michelle, because we've all heard the lesson about why casting your net too wide doesn't work when it comes to getting clients. We know that appealing to everyone isn't the way to go, but I see so many women business owners falling into this trap time and time again. And that's why it's so important to consider this as a process, as an exercise that never really ends, no matter how long you've been in business. Diving into the desires and thought process of your ideal clients is something that should come up often, because it truly is the heart of your marketing. Understanding who that client is and aligning your messaging to who you truly want to serve, that is what informs so much of your business decisions, from the products or services you create to how you position your offers to the messaging and the imagery you use in your marketing. That is why I am so excited to continue this conversation with you on a deeper level during our upcoming Ideal Clients on Demand webinar. Michelle and I are going to walk you through how to easily get noticed and win more of the right clients for you without overcomplicating your marketing, without lowering your prices. Even if this is something you struggle with, this webinar is the place to be. It's going to be a fabulous session on the 3rd of June from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Sydney time. It's absolutely free to attend, and we would love to have you there if you want to start attracting your ideal clients more often. I've got the link for this over on the episode show notes page, but you can register right now by heading to ideal-workshop.com. And I've linked to resources that we've mentioned also in our show notes, and you'll find those at herbusiness.com/309. But if right now you want to go ahead and register for the workshop, you can do that at ideal-workshop.com. And remember, that's on the 3rd of June. So get on in there and claim your place. Now, I want to give a shout out to the lovely Lisa Taylor of Cherished Cherubs. They are Perth's most trusted babysitting and childcare service, and they provide safe, reliable and flexible care for families, businesses and events, ensuring that every child receives the highest standard of attention and support. Highly valued member, highly valued business in her area in Perth. And she said this, she said, hands down, the best podcast for business owners. 5 stars. Love this podcast. It's a must listen for any business owner looking to grow with confidence and clarity. Susie and her team are incredibly generous with their knowledge, delivering practical, actionable strategies. No fluff, just real insights you can actually implement. It's like having a business mentor in your pocket. Highly recommend. Thanks. Thank you so much, Lisa, and happy to give you a shout out. Absolutely adore having you inside of our Her Business community. Now, if you're listening and you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can shoot me a direct message. You'll find us on Instagram at As Her Business. You can direct message me, and I would very happily shout out your business as well. Once again, a summary of today's notes, links to any resources, links to the free workshop can be found over on our show notes page at herbusiness.com/309. This is episode 309. And if you're new to the show, subscribe wherever you're listening. Just click follow or subscribe to make sure that you get the next episode. We release a brand new episode every week. Sometimes it's just me sharing some of my experiences and telling stories of inspiring women business owners. Sometimes, like today, it's episodes that feature experts like Michelle. So once again, thank you to Michelle Falzon for joining me here today, and I hope you'll join Michelle and I on the upcoming free webinar. Now, one final thing. If you are listening and you are not a member of the Her Business Network, but you would like more resources and more support to start creating a business that you love, that rewards you in every way, including financially, then head over to herbusinessnetwork.com to learn more about our community and to put yourself on the wait list. And the next time we open up the doors, we will send you an invitation to join. I love doing this show for you. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week right here on the Her Business Podcast. Bye for now.